Hi, my name is John Hayes, the Chief Marketing Officer of American Express. Recently, we had a competition where we invited groups of students from universities throughout the world to come up with a new marketing strategy for American Express global website. And here was one of our most interesting entries.
For this project, we were analyzing the American Express website to see the differences and similarities based on culture and geographical experiences. Here at CMU, our project team consists of Emma, Dima, and myself, Folashade. Over in Singapore, we have Jonathan, Karishma, and Ela. American Express has such a big global presence. It is known here in the United States, in Singapore, and in India. We recommended changes on the icons, the color palettes, menu reduction, stronger integration of external services, localized names, and localized advertisements, so that we can have a consistent layout for all international countries.
American Express sources its business from more than just its charge cards and credit cards. In fact, it creates alliances with airlines and brings in services like insurance in international countries. Given that, they tried to incorporate those features into their website, but very poorly maintained the design. It wasn't consistent with the American Express theme, and it was not as localized as we would prefer.
One of our suggestions is that American Express uses the federalist approach in their website design, and this federalist approach actually integrates global, regional, and local content. To do this, American Express needs to have a unified design for their website, and they have already successfully achieved that in one of their websites, which is the American Express China website. Say for their home page versus their sub pages, like the page for their credit cards, it has a very similar website design. So this is very different compared to, say, the Singapore website, which has a global design when compared to US, but when we compare the home page versus the sub pages in Singapore, in American Express Singapore's website, they are very different. Finally, we have the extreme end, which is American Express India, and their website structure and website design is very, very different compared to American Express China and Singapore, and it's completely off from what American Express in US is.
For colors, we were thinking of going with a more blue and gray theme, as is presented on most of the original web pages. Whenever you transfer pages on the American Express website, there seems to be a change in color palette. Like when you transfer from the home page to the membership rewards on the American site, it turns from a blue-gray palette into a green palette, with the header being blue-gray under the American Express logo. This might cause a little bit of confusion, especially if we are trying to make this more into a global site. Blue is generally a color that is widely accepted as a positive color among cultures, so that's it's generally considered the safest for websites. And then in terms of expressing money, we could use the color gold instead of green. We think that it's probably best to stick to the original color palette, especially since American Express's logo is blue. Another one of our suggestions is that the navigation and amount of pages for the American Express website is rather extensive, which causes the customer a lot of confusion and puts a lot of responsibility on them in order to be able to navigate and find the areas that they want on the web page. This means that we think you should try to consolidate, simplify, and cut down on the number of pages and menus that you have in order to make it a more simple and easy experience.
When we looked at American Express's website, we saw that the company tried to advertise its most important or most profitable features through a banner on its home page. That banner was randomly generated every time you reloaded the page. We thought that was both inefficient because users couldn't see all the advertisements, and we thought that the content on those advertisements should be localized a lot more. We recommended that American Express change that banner on its homepage to a slideshow feature, which would hold multiple advertisements.
Based on all the recommendations given by my other team members, we've come up with a set of wireframes that we feel would be best suited for Amex's website needs. We've come out with something that we think would suit what we suggest for Amex as the federalistic approach, which means that they have a globalized design and localized content frames within them. So this is the main wireframe which we suggest American Express uses across all websites and all countries. We'd start off with the header. The header consists of the American Express logo and a different number of headers, for example, cards, my account, rewards, travel, insurance, etc. If you were to click on any of these headers, a subheader option list would pop up. These subheaders would have different other options. For example, like if you were to choose cards, then you would have personal cards, business cards, corporate cards, etc. If the user clicks on change country, then this section of the page would get blacked out and be replaced by this section. This section will have different country names where you can click and proceed to that particular country's website. Next, we have a regulations notice. For example, the European Union necessitates that the company inform its customers of cookie collection policies. Then we have the main content frame, where we have 4 frames which would have localized content. This frame talks of featured products and featured services as promoted by Amex at that point in time. If you were to click on this button, for example, you would have a slider option that would feature the next product or service. This is in sync with what one of my groupmates mentioned earlier. These 2 content boxes would concentrate on new features and new products as promoted by Amex. We suggest that this frame be reserved for social media feeds, where news feeds and new news material from Twitter and Facebook can be published. Then we have the footer. The footer would consist of more products and services, important links and company information, which should be standardized and linked across all company website pages. This is the wireframe for sub-pages. This page continues in the old format with the header and the footer, as I mentioned earlier. And the only new feature on this page would be the subheaders which would come out. We are recommending that Amex limits the subheaders to not having drop-down menus further, as this confuses customers at times. These 2 frames would have localized information, again as per each topic or as per each header that we are looking at.
Another area that we're looking at is the use of icons in American Express websites. So we noticed that on China's website as well as India's website, there are no icons at all for the headers, versus say the Singapore's website or US website or UK's website, which uses a set of generic icons. So, well, we could propose having generic icons for both China's website as well as India's website, but no, what we're suggesting is culture-specific icons. In most Western society, the idea of a male toilet is aptly demonstrated by this very symbol here. However, if you go to India, for example, you notice that the icon looks totally different. In fact, it's a guy wearing a white color turban and a white color top. One particular area that we're looking at in terms of icons is on travel. The current set of icons, the very generic icons for travel, is based on a plane, so these 2. However, what about India? India's website, one of their promotions was to Mumbai for a certain fare. Customers could be travelling by planes. However, they could also be travelling by trains or even by cars. So these are actually alternative travel icons which American Express could use. Well, we've so far talked a lot about local content, about global design, but what exactly is local content for American Express? Well, if you look at China's website promotes virtual pay, which is a way of paying for online purchases. Look at India's website, which talks about the Mumbai link. So these are all examples of local content for American Express website.
While we look at local content, we should also remember the cultural aspect and the cultural importance of how American Express actually approaches this kind of local content. For example, if you look at the India website, you see a very feministic approach towards how they present their content. For example, it's not my account, it's your account. There's also a more keen interest and more keen concentration on the fact that you buy a card for your family and not for your personal use. There is less importance given to the benefits and more importance to the security that the card would give your family. It also extends to the concept of having insurance in both the India and the Singapore websites, whereby we feel that American Express is trying to promote the security of their brand by linking it to a more common or rather well-known local brand to give customers the feeling of security and trustworthiness of Amex products and solutions.
And this cultural approach extends to American Express marketing strategy as well. For example, if you look at Singapore's website, you realize that Singapore American Express puts the cards up front and center. What they're marketing is the card, is the fact that people can own this specific card. However, if you look at the American Express website, you'll notice that it's very different. It's more about the experience, what are the benefits that I enjoy. So the marketing strategy is very different, and this could be perhaps based on cultural approach.
American Express could actually look into globalizing their logo, because currently it's American Express. So it's a very American concept to it, and it might not be very accepted very readily in all over the world. So they could lean towards a logo that does not have words, maybe like something like what Pepsi has adopted. So American Express could drop the American in it, have a more global feel to the whole brand.
And that's all the time we have for our recommendations.
If you wish to know more, please go through our written report.
Thank you.
It was interesting to be able to communicate with people from a different continent in order to try to get this all together, especially in terms of synchronizing our schedules, and which was really difficult, and like trying to get the content to one another on time.
As a group, I feel like we learned a lot about time management and project management. Having to coordinate our efforts between two time zones was difficult, but we were able to get through it. We scheduled meetings that were at night in Singapore, but in the morning for us. And in that way, we were able to both work on the same project. And I would suggest having specific roles for different people, so that there's a project manager and someone who can, and someone for quality assurance to make sure you're delivering the best project that you can. For our communication tools, we decided to disregard email as a communication because it gets so lost and emails get so busy and bombarded with other things that it's easy to lose track and hard to keep focused on what was going on. In the end, we had to create a Google collection folder for all our documents to keep one centralized place. We also collaborated on Facebook in a Facebook group.
We noticed very early on in the project that email was a very non-efficient way to communicate. It wasn't something that we checked all the time or that we got notifications of on our phones. So we eliminated conversations through emails and stuck only to a Facebook group we created in the very beginning. That way our communication and our files were all centralized in a location that most of us checked quite frequently throughout the day.
Hi, this is the SMU team. I'm Ela.
I'm Karishma.
And I'm Jonathan.
We had a fantastic time in this group project with CMU, and we hit a lot of good points, a couple of lows. We had an extremely good rapport with all the three of them from CMU, and we thank them for that. It was fantastic working with them. One thing we could have improved upon was probably setting deadlines. We did not set deadlines quick enough, so we were kind of rushed towards the end sometimes.
In addition to setting deadlines, it would be good if we could assign specific roles to people so that we can keep track of the progress of the whole project that we're doing.
Well, besides setting deadlines, we started off quite well in terms of communications. We rely on Facebook, we rely on Google Hangouts, and those were good in the sense that they allowed us to communicate with each other quite effectively. In some cases, it wasn't real time enough, especially when we were rushing for deadlines. So I mean, setting deadlines early is always good.
Thank you.
Thank you.